All
All
right.
right, here we
Now I
go.
feel comfortable. That's all I needed.
Oh, we're going to start the episode off today with some laughter, some brevity. What's up, everybody? My name is Scott Leese. I'm here with my friend and partner and co-founder in the Surf and Sales Summit, Richard Harris. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Surf and Sales Podcast. What's going on, Richard? How you doing?
I'm good, man. I've talked to you more this week than I have in a long time. So I actually need to talk to you offline about some stuff too, about particularly going to Colorado.
Yeah.
But we'll
All
do
right.
that.
Let,
But I'm
let's
good.
do
I'm
that.
good. You feeling
Good.
better? I know you're getting over your cold
Yeah.
and your flu and
Yeah.
your
And these things take a long time for me.
yeah,
Normal people lick a cold in 3 or 4 days, and it's a couple week affair for me, as you know. So
yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
Welcome
powering
to old
through.
age.
That's not making it any easier. That's for sure.
Right.
That's for sure. We are going to be joined today by my friend Chris Cicconi, who is out in Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And this guy is a freelance extraordinaire. I don't even know really how to begin to explain all of his different job titles and all the different things that he does, but he's got sales experience, business development experience, creative experience, all this kind of stuff. Welcome to the show, Chris. We are glad to have you, man.
Right on. Thank you so much, Scott. Thanks, Richard. Scott, the irony of that coming from you that you can't explain the
I
list of
know.
other folks, right? It's a little bit humorous because I was looking at both your LinkedIn's and I'm just scrolling for days and days. But I'm super excited to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
I tell Scott this all the time. Is like, I don't know what you actually do, Scott. So it he knows I say this to him. It's partially serious and partially true, or partially joking. But
At this
is he
point,
like you, Scott?
I think you just say it to steal business from me now, is what I
Is
think.
it
That's what I think. I don't know. Nobody knows what Scott does. You should probably just
right?
work with me. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right.
Well, tell everybody a little bit about your background, Chris, so they have some context and maybe a little bit about what you're working on at present.
Yeah, right on. It's funny. I always say I started my career as the prototypical accidental salesperson. Like I studied kinesiology and I have a bachelor's degree in athletic therapy because I thought I would be running onto the field with these sports teams and doing all that glorious stuff. And then I realized Canada has like five professional sports teams, and that was never going to happen. So, stumbled my way into sales because I figured I can run my mouth, and that's good enough to get a sales job. And just sort of made a habit of starting new things in sales. So I got an opportunity to start a brand new division at an established company. Made a move into SaaS and was the first sales hire at an organization. Did a little BD stuff in between there as well, kind of building out new BD functions. I was like, you know what? This is really fun. I like the building. I like starting something new, but I keep changing jobs every year. So maybe instead of doing that, I just do this freelance and fractionally instead.
Yeah.
And that's something I jumped into. It's been almost exactly a year. And it's gone so well that I've been so busy that I haven't even had time to like name my company or anything. So if anybody out there has a really great name for a fractional sales and consulting company, please let me know. Because otherwise we're
I,
going with Chris Cicconi Inc.
I I actually think this is a an interesting topic because
Yes.
one of the things that has always rubbed me the wrong way with people who go out on their own or they start any business is they end up focusing on things that don't really matter. Like people will spend weeks trying to figure out their color pattern on their, logo and their website and stuff like that. And they'll run through 100 different names of their company. And I have a friend who's going out on their own right now in the marketing world, and she's spending all this time on all this stuff. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Why don't you just do the actual work and this other stuff will sort itself out? And so you're sort of subscribing to that same ethos. Can you talk about, is
Scott,
that
did I
a
ever just real
conscious
quick?
decision in your mind, or
But
where does that come from?
Scott, would you like to see my original marketing plan that had
No,
my color scheme and the
no,
font
I
that
don't.
I paid someone to do?
This is exactly the difference between Richard and I, because he'll worry about all those things and I didn't. I'm more like you. So
I
how did you like decide that's what I'm just going to focus on this stuff?
Yeah, and first of all, I heard marketing plan and I immediately began getting twitchy. So anything marketing related can we'll just leave that on the back burner. But yeah, it wasn't I'm the worst person to talk about some of this stuff, or I feel like it sometimes because so much of it is not intentional. So I even starting my own thing, I had a really bad experience at the beginning of last year with a founder who decided not to pay me for an extended period of time, which
Mm.
was kind of the straw that broke the camel's back, so to say, where I'm like, you know what? If I'm not going to get paid, I might as well just do it myself and not pay myself, right? So that's what kind of set up this, hey, I'm going to do my own thing. Got a few clients through referrals. You know, my network was really great to me. I started partnering with the folks at Unicorn as well as their head of sales development. So like I just kind of had business coming my way. And so I started working on that. And even at that point, like I said, I didn't know the name. I didn't even know what my offering really was. Like, hey, I do sales stuff. I like early stage stuff. I like building stuff. I can help. And so a lot of what you're talking about, Scott, kind of makes sense. Whereas, like, okay, I like doing this. I'm good at this all of a sudden. Hey, I this is a marketable skill that I have. I can go start talking to people about that. And so much of it was just network and community related. I would start partnering with different vendors as well because, you know, hey, when I get involved early stage, I really like this, and this tech stack. And all of a sudden they're going, well, if you're going to implement some of our stuff, I know some people that could use your help and you could help us get in there. So I started making partnerships like that. And honestly, the leads kind of came rolling in for a period of time. So I just never took the time to figure out like what my colors are, what my name, the company name is. I bought the domain that is my name just so I could have an email address that was not at gmail.com, but my website, if you go there, doesn't exist. It was actually funny. I had a meeting with a prospect last week. It's like, yeah, I'm trying to research you. And I went to chriscicconi.com, like your email says, and there's nothing there. It's like, yeah, that is accurate. There is nothing there. But like
Well,
it's all just come around, right? And you
yeah,
know, things happen organically when you can kind of align what you want to do with what you enjoy doing with things that people want. And it's just
I'm
sort of worked
fairly
out.
I'm fairly certain that I had done consulting for 3 years before I got a website.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you
And
still have a Gmail account.
well, yeah, I had because I have so many different email addresses that I just said the hell with it. I'm just going to use Gmail for everything,
Yeah.
which is, you know, a lot of people say that's the wrong move and that's going to hurt you or it doesn't look professional or whatever. I'm like, whatever, man. It's an email address. Like, I don't, who cares? You
It's not
know,
like at AOL.com or something, right? So
it's not that
you're
bad. It's
probably
not that
okay.
bad. Not that bad.
Yeah.
Probably
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Not that
But
bad.
like
That
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 was
would be
the
bad. I still laugh at people with that. So
that was the irony of me trying to name my company. Then it's like, well, do I name my company? Then do I need to buy another domain? Then do I need another email address? Like, fuck it. I'm just gonna go with this. It
Yeah.
works.
These are the decisions that you actually don't need to spend that much time on
Right.
because there's a million and one decisions that you're supposed to be making every single day as somebody running their own business. It's hard. So how
Totally.
can I remove certain decisions from my plate? That was my thought process with it all. But
And
you know, that's not for everybody. So I just it's interesting to hear you echo some of my sentiment.
I always think back to actually one of my first sales leaders, or actually my first sales leader, and I always give Denis a big shout out because he kind of gave me that opportunity when I had no real experience. And his thing in the sales world, because it's very similar to, you know, having your own kind of company, is there are so many distractions and so many things that take you away from like revenue generating activities. So in sales, as an AE, are you doing and spending your time doing revenue generating activities? And I find myself as like a founder and on the consulting side thinking the same thing where, yeah, is naming my company really going to be a founder or a revenue generating activity? Is picking my color palette, is coming up with my marketing plan and all that. Like, is it or is it not? And I think at a certain point it probably will be to be able to help in the scaling and things like that. But right now, I'd rather be working with clients and getting new clients than, you know, filling out a Word document.
Yeah. The branding part is interesting because if you name the company something, then all of a sudden you're working on Chris as a brand plus company name as a brand. Whereas for me, as I was trying to simplify decisions, I'm like, I already have a name that is somewhat of a brand. I'm just going to stick with that so people don't have to learn this new thing, you know?
yeah, that's what
And
I did. So although I think I chose the wrong name. Like when I did it, it was 13 years ago, and so I was trying to make myself bigger. So I chose the Harris Consulting Group, which is the worst fucking email ever. But I did it specifically because I wanted to sound like a group, like I was a bigger entity. But I think because I don't think the fractional approach was talked about in that way. right? As it has picked up that steam in the last 2 years. So I went down that path of that's why I chose that name. And even to this day, people are like, well, is it you who does the trading? And I'm like, all right. So it's certainly working for me in that regard, and to the point of sticking with the name. So I agree with that. I don't think you need to overcomplicate it with, salessimplified.com, kind of a thing.
But I think that's so interesting because I agree that there was like a changeover in the last few years where not that long ago you did want to seem, hey, I'm bigger, I'm more official, I'm fancier, and
Mm-hmm.
that gives me more credibility.
Validation. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that
Yeah.
in the last couple of years, to Scott's point, there's been this big push of as a brand, as an individual, I carry a lot of weight. So why would I hide that behind something else when I can just do my own thing and I can launch my own thing and I can call it, Chris Cicconi Inc. And that's
Yeah.
good enough because people recognize the name as a brand. So I definitely think that flip has happened not that long ago. That's really driven more of that individual piece. And to your point as well, Richard, then you don't have people asking you like, but are you the one doing the work? Like, is it you? Is
Yeah.
it a team?
I
Y-
don't mind because of the name I chose. I don't mind them asking that. That
Totally.
that I think has helped me. Like I've had some very large enterprise clients, and I think that that's what's helped. You know, even draw them in, or my SEO approach, Scott. Um, so he and I battle this SEO game all the time. So so I have a question for you, because this is the other challenge that I see with folks coming into their own space is, the first year goes really, really well because it's a lot of networking inbound from the people they know, research, and then somewhere around that 12 to 18-month mark, it gets harder for them,
Mhm.
right? Because they've kind of exhausted that list, right? Have you started to run into that yet? Are you No, I'm making these other moves behind the scenes to help prevent that? Or is it like, no, I haven't run into it, and I don't, based on my pipeline, I don't see that happening for the next 2 years. Which by then, now you have a name in the space, right? Kind of a thing, a bigger name.
Totally. And I think that I am living some of that right now. And some of that is somewhat intentional as well. Because to your point, year one, super well. Year one went great. And I think I left year one realizing a couple things. Because in year one as well, like, hey, I've got my business. I just, incorporated myself. I got my bank accounts. I want to fill those up. So, hey, you need me to do this? Yeah, you need me to wash toilets? Cool. You need me to do whatever it is. Like I'm just taking that business on. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
probably not fully grasping what my worth is in the way of charging people. So I think in the first year, I took on too many clients for too little money. And I don't want to say burnt myself out because I want to respect that term as something that exists, but I think I overworked myself for too little money. And I think coming into year two, in the beginning of this year, something really important to me was, hey, can I focus on the things I enjoy doing, I am good at, and provide value and clients that I can charge a reasonable amount where it's worthwhile for me to work with them. So I'm definitely working with less clients right now. I'm definitely making a little bit less money right now, but I am happier with the amount of effort I am putting in and the return on investment I'm getting out of it.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it. Go ahead,
Yeah.
Richard.
Except now you got to get, you should be working with fewer clients, but making more money.
Right.
That's the next
Next
level.
step, right?
Well, you
Yeah.
got to
So,
add them back
and
on,
and
right?
and maybe I think that's the challenge. I wonder if that's the challenge for people who move into that market, Scott. I don't know what you've seen from people that we know who've done this, where they all of a sudden go, oh, I should charge more, and they do, but then they have fewer clients, and they start to get into a little bit of a drought, and that's when they're like, shit, I need to go get a job now. Like,
Yeah.
is that what you? I've never thought about it or from that respect, but I don't know, Scott. Have you? Like, have you seen it that's happening?
Well, I've probably had that conversation 3 times in the last 2 weeks with
Okay.
people who've been running their own thing, and they've very quickly gone from posting on LinkedIn about how they run a 7-figure agency to now they're going back and working for somebody full time.
Yeah.
So
What do you think is
very,
the
very
challenge?
real.
What advice do you give to Chris? Right? What advice, having done this yourself? I've seen how you do it. I know how you did it. Um, and now talking to others? Like, what's that advice for that, getting over that hump of year one to year two?
I think some people try. It's interesting because it's very similar to what SaaS companies do. They try to hire their way into success or hire their way out of trouble, and they try to scale too fast. I know some of these people that I'm thinking about. I had conversations with in the last few days. They're running things on their own, and then they hire people, and all of a sudden they have an agency and a team of 10 and a bloated overhead, and they're like, "Hey, we're doing $2 million a year," and I'm like, "Whoa, hold on."
Not really.
You're doing $2 million a year, but you're spending 1.8 of it.
Right.
And so you made 200 grand last year. Like these are not the same thing. So my advice is always be really careful about how you grow. Be very mindful of your margin. That's one of, if not the most important things. Um, Learn more and more to lock in on your exact ideal customer profile and not take clients who will be a bad fit or you won't be able to have some success for. Uh, don't try to execute too many different things in business 5, 6, 7, and 8 when the first one is not really rocking and rolling yet. This is not like groundbreaking advice by any stretch of the imagination. It's just sort of like a reminder of sort of sound core principles that sometimes I think people get away from.
And I think you nailed it there when you compared it to like the founders in the SaaS space and other B2B spaces as well. Because I've seen very similar things with a lot of the founders that I do work with who are coming to me after year one and going, yeah, I hit a bit of a lull, but like, hey, I really know who my ICP is because I've got X amount of clients in year one. I was like, dude, your ICP is all of your friends who decided to help you out by
I
buying your
just had this
product,
conversation.
right? Like
Yes.
that is not your ICP. And I
Yeah.
think the biggest challenge I run into is getting in front of those founders and trying to have them understand that, yeah, just because a bunch of people bought your stuff doesn't mean that is your proper target, that is your proper ICP. Like there's a lot of stepping back and figuring this out the right way you have to do. But I think to your point, Scott, a few of them just grab onto that and go like, hey, these 10 people bought from me. These are my perfect clients. I'm going to go scale this now. And they're just trying to get too far ahead. So it's definitely a problem, I think, for a lot of different organizations. And the beauty of it of running my own thing is, yeah, I don't need to be at $2 million after 2 years. So I can take a step back and scale it properly and go like, hey, I understand where I made my mistakes and I can slow down a bit and still be in okay shape. Where I think, to your point, Scott, when you're bloating your team and trying to scale something that's not going to work, you've got, people's livelihoods in your hands. Like that's a whole other level
Yeah,
of burden.
I I mean,
you've put a tremendous amount of pressure on yourself at that point in time.
and it's funny, and Scott knows this about me. I've watched so many people do this and hire people, and I've contemplated hiring people, and I've got like two people that are part time, not my employees, but I never wanted to have employees for this reason. I never wanted to worry about healthcare, and other than my own, I never wanted to have to deal with benefits and providing all that stuff and all that time and struggling to make sure that the money was coming in, right? Like I built a lot. I have purposely stayed as a lifestyle business, right? And there's some things I could have done differently to grow it, but I have a question for you, right? So, what are the tactics you use? Like you're clearly an aggressive sales growth, building the model kind of stuff, right? Like you found that that's your niche in general because that's what you like to do. Again, for fractional, right? Moving into your own business, what are the things you do presently to try and generate new business? Is it just LinkedIn? Is it SEO? Are you TikToking like Scott with video? Like, what are the things are you cold calling? Are you just sticking with old school? Like, what are you doing?
It's funny because every time I try and figure out TikTok, I get like 18 views on a video, and I'm like, screw this, I'm done with it. So I keep coming back and forth to that, and one day maybe I'll figure it out. For me, I
Scott
mean,
figured it out.
I'm gonna have to bug Scott more about this then because I am not there. Yeah, I think the main one for me has been LinkedIn, just because that's kind of where I've been living and building my brand just for shits essentially. And then it turned into, oh wait, this is something I can actually really use to generate business. This is cool.
Mhm.
So that's been my main go-to. From there, I've always been a big proponent of partnerships. That's something I've always tried to drive whenever I've been at an organization, right? Like I'm all about low-hanging fruit. And I think fractionally when I move into an organization and work with them, it's the same principle, right? Where can I get the quick wins to show some value immediately and build off of that? And I think I build my own business the same way, where just starting with, LinkedIn, networking, who I know. And that turned into great. Who can I work with and have that kind of reciprocal quid pro quo type of thing? And I have found that with a few vendors that I work with as well. And then starting to work through communities and getting out there. I neglected the physical in-person communities, and we're getting more and more of those since the pandemic kind of messed them all up. But having more of that here in Montreal, so trying to get out in front of people, and meet with people is kind of where I've been so far. And I look at it, and based on how much I charge and the number of clients I need, like if I can get 4 or 5 clients, I'm good. So I don't need to go high volume, or I don't need to go the traditional route necessarily just yet. And that might change. But like where I'm at with the volume I'm looking for, just getting in front of the right people and having conversations has worked for me so far.
Yeah, the trick is staying in that right spot so you keep having the right number of those
Yeah,
conversations. And I think
yeah,
what you find is that quote unquote right spot is a moving target. Is not to go too far at the deep end into surfing analogy, but like one of the hardest things about surfing is when you're out there is being in the right spot. And the best surfers, oftentimes what they understand is the wave dynamics and where the right takeoff spot is. And the people who struggle surfing are too far out or too in or too far to the left or too far to the right. And you don't just sit there, you're constantly paddling and moving, trying to
you're
stay in that
exhausted.
right spot all the time. And that's the exhaustive part,
Yes.
right? And it's a an on point analogy with what you're talking about. It's something that I think everybody struggles with. I struggle with it. It's why I start experimenting with different things, because I feel like the ground underneath me is moving and I'm like, oh shoot, I'm not in the right spot. I need to shift and pivot. That's the that's the frenetic part about it.
Well,
And
I
Yeah.
think, go ahead,
Go ahead,
Richard.
Chris. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, I think you nailed it there, because that's also one of the big learnings I had in year one, where I was like, oh, I'm really busy working with, my clients, and that's great. And then one falls off and you go, okay, but I haven't been doing this other thing over here because I'm one person and I'm busy, and everything starts to shift. And then if you shift too much in one direction as well, you kind of topple over, right? Because if I spend too much time trying to get new business, then my clients start suffering. So it's, how do I find that piece of that balance between the two, where I can be spending the time doing the business development versus spending time working with clients, so that everybody stays happy, my portfolio stays full. And like that absolutely is a moving target that shifts regularly. And you have to find ways to weave that into your day to day to make it a habit, so that you're constantly doing the right things, as opposed to trying to flip back and forth and try and pivot too much, because I find that is very distracting as well.
Yeah, I have that shiny penny problem, right? Scott's very good at this disciplined approach. He really, really like it's one of the things I truly admire about him and and wish I was better at. But I think it's the athlete in him. It's that mindset where I'm like, all right, well, I got to go hit 1,000 backhands today.
yeah,
Like that's just the way it's going to be. So, but Scott, I do want to come back to you. It is called the Surf and Sales Podcast, and it's okay to bring
yeah,
up a
we are
surfing
allowed.
analogy.
Yeah, we
I
are allowed
I
to bring
I
up
was like,
surfing
why is he
analogy.
apologizing for
I don't know.
bringing up a surf? It might be the first surf analogy we've had in 6 months. Anyway,
You're talking to the guy whose
so
water's frozen half the year, so like you're
Yeah,
gonna
maybe that's why
misframe the
I'm
analogy,
right,
but
apologizing, because he doesn't live anywhere near, moving water. It's all
well, we
correct.
frozen
we
where
we
he
have a
lives.
solution for that too, called the
Yeah,
Surf and
get him
Sales
across
event,
the pond.
Chris.
Get him
Come
across the
on
pond.
over, come to
We need to
Europe,
talk about
right?
that.
So, well, cool. So I have a question for you. When did you decide to do? You sort of mentioned
Yeah.
that. Okay, I realized this. I'm changing my job every year. what was the epiphany moment, right? What was it? And there are two approaches. There are the approaches of screw this, I'm going to go do this on my own, which was kind of my thing, sort of fall into it. Then there's Scott's approach where he kind of built it up alongside his regular job until he was comfortable that his income would be fine if he quit the real job, right? Which is sort of that measured, disciplined approach. Were you building this on the side and did that kind of thing? Or was it like, you know what, screw this? And regardless, what was the moment that made you go all in? What was the moment where you're like, fuck this, I got to do it this way?
It's funny hearing more about Scott's approach. I really idolize that and wish I was more like that. I feel like I fall more into your bucket with this one though, Richard.
Yeah.
Like
Circumstances sometimes force it. So that was a little bit of my situation. So
that was very similar to my situation as well. And it was interesting because I started like even in my first role, and I was at Aerotech for to almost 10 years. I built a new division in Canada, hiring people, developing people, seeing that number grow was really, really cool. And then I decided, hey, that was in the staffing industry. I want to, take a crack at SaaS and started, new organization there and started building stuff up. And it was that motion of like, okay, cool. This is figured out. Not that we're on cruise control, but like team knows what they need to do. I just need to make sure that I'm staying on top of them. We're working through training and development stuff, and that's cool. But like I want a big mix up again. And that's when I would start going like, okay, a year here, everything is settled, people are good, cool. Let me go do this again. People are settled, everything's set, cool. Let me go do this again. And it was the last time around that I jumped in with a founder who came on board. I was ecstatic. The product was great. First couple of weeks, I'm getting on the phone with clients and like they're telling me how great the product is, getting on the phone with prospects and they're buying. I'm like, this is wonderful. And then my paycheck doesn't come. And I was like, oh, that's kind of a kick in the nuts. Okay. Dude, what's going on? Oh, yeah, a couple clients haven't paid us and I got to move some stuff around. And like, don't worry, you'll get it like I'll double you up the next paycheck. I'm so sorry about this, whatever. All right, cool. Shit happens. Um, Same thing though, like moving deals across the line. I was like, well, we're making money somewhere because like I'm signing deals. So like,
mm-hmm.
what's going on here? And same thing, that next time around, money doesn't come in. And at a certain point, I'm like, all right, dude, like I'm done. I'm not going to keep working until I get paid. And because I was the only salesperson I'm building this out for him, I got that money pretty quick. But at that point, I'm like, well, like we're done here, right? I'm not taking that risk again. And if I'm going to go through all of that and all of that BS, like I'm just going to do it for myself. And that was kind of that circumstance that made me go, like, if I can survive not getting paid and I can close my own deals and figure all this out, like I'm just going to start doing that myself now.
Good
So
deal.
that was kind of the trigger that made me go like, I'm going to figure this out. And while I wish I had a little bit more of that business built up on the side a bit here and there, that would have been nice. But I did have, actually, I did have one client essentially on the side. So that was a little bit of income. Doing a couple paid posts here and there on LinkedIn. So that was a little bit of income. I met up with the dudes at Unicorn who are our fractional agency essentially. So they had a couple clients they needed a hand with. So I was able to jump in with them and do a little bit there. And that was starting to just get me a baseline of like, hey, I can pay my mortgage
Right.
and while I go out and do more. So I think that's something else that's really important to me is, economies shift and times change is like I feel really good about having more than one source of revenue. And that's really important to me because things pivot and things change all the time. And owning your own destiny is much
Yeah.
easier than being in one company that could very easily kick you out tomorrow. But it still doesn't feel great when it's like, yeah, I do this one thing and that's where I make my money.
Yeah, well, we're huge proponents of that. We talk about it all the time. So that's good to hear. And I think it's a mistake that some people make when they go into business for themselves. All of a sudden they're like, I've got to be all in on this consulting thing or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
And they shut down all these other additional streams of income for some reason. It's like, no, you don't want to do that. You have to have additional streams of income, even if your own business is the main thing.
Totally.
You don't just go to one stream because of that. What happens if something turns and that business that you're in, isn't as successful or isn't viable anymore? Oh, it's tough. It's tough. Well, we appreciate you spending time with us, man. At the end of every show, we like to say, how can we be helpful to you? Do you have any questions for us? stuff like that. So here we are. How can we best serve you?
Right on. So it's funny, I alluded before about scrolling through both of your LinkedIn pages and seeing just the cacophony of companies you've worked with, advised for, all that kind of stuff. So
Big
I'm
word,
curious.
big word.
It just came to me.
Cacophony.
I gotta get the
A
thesaurus out,
plethora,
make sure I
a
used it properly.
cornucopia.
Yeah.
Cornucopia, there you go. So I'm curious how a lot of those came to be. Like Richard, you asked me the question before around like the business development piece. Like, are these things that happened organically? Are these very specific organizations you're like, no, I want to work with you and I think you're in a spot I can help you? Or was it them coming to you after a certain point and saying like, Scott, we know Scott, we want Scott to help us out with this. Like, where did some of that come from? And any advice around, getting in front of the right people and that type of thing?
So it came from the fact that I had this marketing plan with a color palette and the right SEO
That's what I've been
approach.
doing wrong this whole time. You want to send me a
Um,
template for that, Richard?
yes, I can send you my orange, my burnt orange and blue colors, Pantone color for scheme.
Great.
Um, no, I got super lucky, right? I had somebody call and ask me for some help. I was in between jobs and interviewing and getting to like that fifth interview, but never getting the job. Someone called and asked me for help. I threw out this ridiculous number and they said, sure. And I was flying down to Austin um, and for a month. And on my first flight back, I sat down next to a guy on the airplane. Turned out to be Nick Maida from Gainsight. This is 13 years ago. Gainsight had 12 employees. And all of a sudden, I had two clients paying me each of them. I was working for each of them for 30 days, and they were each paying me 3 months' salary. So I had two clients, and in 60 days, I was making 6 months' salary. And I was like, what the fuck? So I picked up the phone. I called John Barrows, who's a friend of mine, and he's like, dude, it doesn't happen this way. Go for it. And he also said, like, I know you well enough to know you can do this. Go do this. And talked to my wife. I built a validation website because I felt like I needed it and because I had customers, right?
Mhm.
And it was very different that was my approach. I wasn't going out to my network, so to speak. Um, and I was doing a little bit of cold calling, but then one client begot the next, begot the next, begot the next. I started doing LinkedIn super early. I got super lucky in connecting with SalesLoft early in their days, just to connect with them and went to their event. And I was like, gee, if I could go to this event and get a $5,000 deal, it'll pay for the event, right? Well, sat down at lunch next to somebody, and sure enough, I got a $5,000 deal out of it. And then met Max Altschuler at that event, who created Sales Hacker and was commenting on LinkedIn all the time. And then he came to me 2 months later and said, hey, I need help with these people who come in looking for sales training. And then I said, sure. And then he said, hey, do you want to start running our webinars? So like it all sort of fell in my lap in a very serendipitous way. And so my name got out there in a very different way, I think, than a lot of other people before LinkedIn became as saturated, right?
Mhm.
When Sales Hacker get 400 people to register for a webinar and 200 would show up, and I'm hosting, four of them a month, and all of a sudden I'm getting business from all that. Like, so it happened very differently and organically for me through inbound, right?
Mhm.
Um, so that was my approach to it, and I just sort of winged it and figured it out. And I kept telling Scott for years, like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, look at how much money you can be making and not have to be a slave to the grind and the man in the machine. Um, and he's, as you can tell, he's much more reserved. He takes time to think it through and disciplines himself to do it in a different way. Um, but that's kind of how it all happened for me. So it was not the strategy fell upon me as much as I found the strategy. I don't even know if I found the strategy. It found me.
Well, it's funny you're saying, Scott, you don't have to be a slave to the grind. You just have to sit next to some guy on a plane, and like next thing you know,
Yeah,
right? You've
yeah.
got your
Yeah,
own consulting business. Easy
You gotta be in
peasy.
the right spot. That's
yeah.
hard to.
And by the way, I was using a Yahoo email address at that stage too for those first two clients. I
Ooh,
was like, oh
like
my
you
God,
made
I got
it.
to get a business name. Like it's fucking Yahoo looks for. I wasn't even cool enough to have a Gmail email address.
Hey, those were
uh,
invite only for a little bit, right? You have to be somebody special to get one of those.
the the thing that I wanted when I first got into this is I did not believe or want to have to execute like a big outbound strategy in order
Yes.
to be a consultant. And so whenever I talk to somebody who's doing consulting or coaching or whatever, and they have this big outbound play, I just think to myself, man, that
It's exhausting.
sounds horrible,
Yes.
horrible and exhausting, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I don't want that. And I don't know how I could actually do that while also doing the fulfillment
Yeah.
aspect of working with all these clients. I don't know how you'd have time for it, truly. So I didn't want to go out on my own until I had a solid inbound referral kind of motion. I really can't think of any clients that I've gotten in consulting from outbound. Like I've never had to outbound really. I've done some outbounding stuff for community things of mine, surf and sales things of mine, stuff like that. But I'm not out there, sending hundreds of emails and sequence things and cold calling founder. Like, I just don't think that that's the way for me. I didn't want to do that, even if I could be successful with it. It just sounds horrible. I didn't work 20 years in this business in order to have to do that. And I think if it came down to it and that was the only way forward for me to do what I do now, I think I'd probably stop doing what I do now, to be honest with you, because I don't think I'd enjoy it. At that point in time, I'd rather go be a CRO and, teach and lead and help people grow in their career and see if I can't get a big, huge exit one day, you know? So whenever
you set
people
yourself
tell
up
me,
for that too, though.
yeah,
You have to set
yeah,
yourself up for that exit.
yeah, yeah, as people should. This is one of the gripes I have with people doing their own thing like too early. I hear from these people all the time. They're like, how do you go get new clients? Like, I've got 3 or 4 clients right now. I'm doing the work for them. I don't have time to prospect. And I'm like, yeah, motherfucker, I told you wouldn't have time, to do that. It's not going to be sustainable. Like, you're in trouble in that respect. So this is why growing your network matters so much. Producing content matters so much. Doing good work so those people refer you other people matters so much. This is why partnering and having good relationships amongst peers and compatriots of yours, like Richard and I, don't do the exact same thing. So we have the opportunity to pass prospects to each other and vice versa and things like that. All of that stuff, really, really matters in this ecosystem, I think. So yeah, that's how I've gone about it and thought about it.
It is interesting, though, if you think about it too, that the amount of effort that we put into networking, hosting, newsletters, community, that is outbound prospecting, but it's in a way that we can control it. And it's in a way that we feel like it's meaningful and supportive. It's not cold. I mean, it's still cold, so to speak, but it is, if you think about it, it is the same as it's a different type of outbound prospecting to drive inbound, right? But I agree with you. It's exhausting to throw shit into the ether and, pray that it might work to get someone to respond to you, as opposed to let me post stuff and build that brand and that name, which, it sounds like, Chris, you figured out too.
Well, it's a lot more fun, right? Like, it's a whole
Yes,
lot more fun than crafting an
yes,
email that nobody ever reads. Like, at least if I send out a
right.
post that nobody reads, like, I know it sucks because I see the 8 people have seen it and I just start over
Yeah.
from scratch. But
Okay. So,
yeah, that's a big part of it as well. And I think, Scott, you kind of alluded to it too, where it's like, yeah, if I'm gonna sit here and just call 1,000 people a day to try and find clients, like, I'll go back and
I'll
I'll do
go
that and get paid
batty,
for it.
right? I'll go batty if I have to do that, even if I was getting paid for it. So,
You'd have
so
to be getting paid a lot.
yes, indeed.
Order of
So,
magnitude lot. Well,
yeah.
thanks so much for spending time with us, Chris. The best way for people to get a hold of you is probably reach out on LinkedIn, I suppose.
Yeah,
Can
LinkedIn's still the
you
best
get your
place to find
website?
me.
Can you get
Yeah,
a
Till
there's no
website?
website. Right.
no,
So,
chriscicconi.com. I should at the very least maybe have that redirect to my LinkedIn or something. Maybe that's something I'll go try and figure
There
out
you
how to do
go.
after
that's
this.
There you
smart.
go. There you go.
It's actually
All
really
right,
smart.
everybody. We appreciate you
Cool.
spending some time with us today on the Surf and Sales podcast, and we will see you all next time. And check out surfandsales.com. There are a couple open tickets left. Go leave a review on the podcast, subscribe to our YouTube channel, all that good stuff. And we will see you next time.
See you, everybody. Good to see you, Chris.